Hello and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club. We are three Latinx besties reading romance, and today is our 100th episode. It's very exciting. We've been reading books together for a really long time, so I'm excited to celebrate our 100th. As you all know, we take turns picking books each month, and this month it was my turn to pick, and I wanted to make it extra fun since it was our 100th episode. So I picked something out of my wheelhouse and I went with Outfield Assist by Kat Giraldo. It is a sporty book and it is full of spicy scenes. Neither of those two things are things that I'm normally a fan of, but I really was excited to read this book. I guess we'll go around and kind of describe what we are dressed as. If you don't know anything about this book, well, now you know. It is a trio / throuple kind of book, and each of us is embodying one of the characters today. I am Gideon, who is an ex-Olympic swimmer. So I am in my bikini top, my hair is pulled back with a headband. Don't rush to the YouTube. My boobs are out of the picture. You can't actually see them. It's like clavicle up. I'm in front of a fancy, honestly, what I Googled was rich people pools overlooking the ocean. And this is what Google gave me. So picture that as the background. And to drink, I have my little shaker cup with some aminos because everyone's always working out in this book and getting way dehydrated for multiple reasons. So gotta stay on it. All right, Chris, tell us about your look.
Hello, friends, and happy 100th episode. Oh my God. I am embodying Jules, the trainer. I am wearing just like my after gym look. Like I've had my sweatshirt on because I'm cold now. I have what do you call this? A sweatband. I got it over the summer. My sister got it for me. It says Hot Orc Summer. It's from Cantrip Candles. They're Hot Orc Summer. They're a fantasy like candle store in LA. And my sister and her partner went over there. They know I love that store and they got me their summer gear. And there's like a fanny pack with it too. It's good. And yeah, my hair is up in a bun and my background is like the gym, like where I definitely work out every day. But I'm done with my workout. So I'm having iced coffee. And that's my look.
I accidentally put on my one sports gear thing we have in the house because I did not know where Ivan had his jersey. So I have a Sharks hat on. The Sharks are a hockey team, but let's pretend they're a baseball team for now, for the purposes of this meeting. And then I changed my background to be the Sharks locker room, where I'm sure there's like just so much dick and balls constantly happening, much like this book that we read.
I love it. Thank you, everybody. I love our outfits. I love our backgrounds. If you can't tell, I'm just really excited for this episode. All right, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book? Maybe we'll join you.
Okay. Outfield Assist by Kat Giraldo. I say Giraldo, not Giraldo. I don't know which one it is. I have
don't
to.
know which one it is either.
That's okay. Jules. Becoming a head strength and conditioning coach was a dream of a lifetime, but it's hard to celebrate our World Series win when I spent the season ignored and underutilized. It's even harder when I'm staring at a lease I can't afford and the empty room my best friend abandoned without warning. Training the star right fielder is my chance to shine, and it can't mess this up, no matter how tempting he and my training partner are.
Gideon. Giving up my Olympic dreams is the hardest thing I've ever done. Facing my estranged dad is the close second. When he volunteers me to help train the right fielder known for big catches and sleeping with a different man in every city, I can't disappoint him, no matter how many reasons I have to say no. Not least of all, the fact that I can't even look at a pool without hyperventilating.
Kid. I should be riding the high of winning the World Series into the off-season, spending my days golfing with the boys and my nights putting my World Series fame to good use. But almost blacking out during the big game was the wake-up call I needed. There's no time to be terrified of my diagnosis when I'm spending the off season with the bubbly coach who shares my love of kink and the anxious swimmer who can't keep his eyes off either of us, no matter how hard he tries to push away or how much he blushes. If this off-season training is my only chance to convince them both to open up to me, then I have to make every second count. And if they both end up in my bed along the way, well, there's nothing wrong with a little extra cardio.
Outfield Assist is a male-male-female polyamorous romance with a guaranteed happily ever after. It's book 2 in the Dominating the Diamond series and can be read out of order or as a standalone.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. And especially to Tosh. All right, Tashai, why don't you read us a little bit about the author?
If I were a rich baseball player, I'd be such an asshole. Okay, so per the Goodreads bio, Kat Giraldo writes romance and fantasy, giving happily ever afters to characters who are painfully human, even when they aren't human at all. She keeps vampires as ours, writing characters far braver and more adventurous than she'll ever be, long after her day job ends, much to her spoiled puppy's irritation.
Side note, I found out, I don't know where I read it. Maybe it was in the other bio, but she's like an engineer during the day. Just wild to me. Anyway.
This explains the mathematics involved in some of the scenario descriptions. They're precise.
Okay, so why did I pick this book? Other than it looked just really fun from the cover. I think it's a great cover. I love the color palette. Lately I've had a thing for girls with pink hair, so that definitely had something to do with it. But yeah, I picked the book because we've only, as far as I can remember, we've only read 2 other throuple books, and I think neither of them has really been what we've been looking for in terms of like, in the first one, everyone was like, it was almost like 2 separate relationships. It was more a love triangle than a throuple. And then the next one we read was a throuple, but like the swords didn't cross, you know? And so I think this one, you know, everyone participated in a more joint way. So I was that's what I had seen in reviews. So I was excited for us to read another throuple book, you know, see if this is the one that we've been looking for, or if we're still searching, you know. I guess we'll find out tonight during the discussion. Spoiler alert, if you have not read this book, we will be going into a lot of detail about a lot of different things. So I want to say it was only a couple dollars on Kindle. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. So go ahead and grab yourself a copy, read it, come back to this episode if you don't want to be spoiled. But to be perfectly honest, the spoilers are all like, they have sex, they have more sex, they have sex some more. So honestly, I feel like you could listen to this episode and still go and enjoy all the sex if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, overall impressions. Who wants to go first?
So I was the last one. I got bronze on this read. Although it was a short read, I read it pretty quickly. It was longer than I thought it was going to be, like much faster of a read. So it was kind of right in the middle, like a little bit too long for a novella, but like still short, like a short romance novel. And I enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. I controversially am not like a huge fan of, I wasn't a huge fan of the alternating points of view in first person in this one. Like I was like, what?
We'll get into that. So
okay,
save your thoughts.
we'll do. But aside from that, I thought it was really sweet and really hot. I really enjoyed the characters. I felt like each one was going through their own thing very much like individually or very much in their own way. So it didn't feel like they kind of blurred into each other, which I feel is a thing that sometimes happens in like poly romances that I've read. And Yeah, I felt like I thought it was an interesting combo of like very wholesome and very kinky. So that was an interesting combination. Um, I think my only critique of it at this point is that it sort of like the plot meandered a little bit for me. And I felt like I wanted more of like a plot to it. Which, because when you said, oh, they have sex again, and then they have more sex, and that's pretty valid. There is some conflict that, is kind of like bubbling under the surface, but I felt like it just didn't have like a really strong arc for me, either for the story as a whole and for each of the characters. But that being said, I still enjoyed it. I had a good time. I had a couple of moments where I like laughed out loud near the end. But yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So I'll leave it to you, Tosh.
Yeah, agree with your point of view. And the only reason Chris got bronze was because she did me the favor of loaning me access to her Kindle Unlimited, because she was like, you can read from my account. I was like, amazing, cool. So thank you for that. Gold star MVP. You gave me an outfield assist on this one. I thought the book was fun. It did take me a bit to get into the switching perspectives, just because I kept having to see who was talking. Like, because there's three characters, it's kind of like, oh wait, like who is this? So it took me a second to kind of figure out whose voice belonged to like which character. And for a good amount of time, I kept getting them wrong. Like, I kept misremembering who I was reading and being like, is this okay, Gideon or Kit? Or Gideon or Kit? And then I think eventually I just realized that if the perspective that was talking was just like checking out everybody, then it was Kit. And that's how I started that's how I started knowing. If it said something about this person blushed, then I'm like, okay, that's Gideon. Because that's what it boiled down to. Was Kit was always checking people out and staring at Gideon. Gideon was always blushing. And then Jules was always like checking everybody out and complaining about her like roommate who betrayed her. So like Chris said, I like was waiting to figure out what was going to be the like big thing that happened, because there's so many characters involved. There's the teammates too, and then there's the friends, and all these people kept like showing up, and so it was very chaotic. But I tried to lean into it about halfway through and just be like, this is just supposed to be a fun time. Like, I'm not going to ruminate on the fact that like they've got co-ed World Series teams, which I don't think has ever happened. And also, what else was I trying to figure out? I was trying to figure out what the like Olympic trauma was, because Gideon has like all this stuff going on, but I don't think we ever really find out why he was traumatized by the pool. So there were just all these things that I just, after a while, was like, okay, it's just more flavor. It's just more flavor. It's fine. Some of it has nutrients to it, and some of it is just for taste. It's okay. But the one thing too, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this, was just like, everybody in this group is into kink. And I'm like, how do you stumble into a group like this where like everybody's into the same thing? Because let me tell you, I know people who participate in like interesting communities, and they like find each other. It's not like, oh yeah, I bumped into this person, and like everybody that I keep bumping into is like people who are all into the same thing. You have to like foster these groups. You have to find your people and create these environments. So the fact that it's like, oh, whoops, how did I bump into you in this kink club? I didn't know you were into this. I'm like, what? I'll believe that everyone is like queer in this story and everyone's into being poly and fluid, but I draw the line at everyone being able to afford access to this kink club. That shit's expensive.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you all said. I did wonder, because you were talking about the kink and stuff, Tosh. I did wonder, like, maybe Kat's just creating like the world that she wishes existed, where it's like all of my friends are. But I agree. I did think about that. Not just the being into kink, but also like there's so many different kinds. Like, I have a lot of friends who go to like kink clubs and like just sex events, but they all go there for different things, or to watch different things, or participate in different things, because they're all into like specific like subgenres, of the. So yeah, I mean, it was nice that they were all into exactly the same things. But yeah, no, I liked it too. I Not gonna lie, I thought this was a novella going into it. And then I was like, oh, it's not, it's a whole novel. It definitely had way more sex than the things I usually pick. So it took me a while longer to read it just because I was like, oh, okay, we're done. Oh no, here come the balls again. It was just like over and over. It was like, Bendito, let him work out in peace. I feel like this is, like sometimes we read books and then like 2 years later, we don't remember them at all. And I feel like 5 years from now, I can be like, hey, remember that like baseball throuple book? And we're all gonna remember it. So to me, that's a book well picked. So moving on to the questions, and I'm gonna start with this because both of you mentioned it. Let's talk about the formatting and the style of the writing. I think this is the first book we've ever read that had 3 POVs, first of all, because I don't think the other throuple books we read were divided into POVs. And it's also the only one I can think of in first person present tense. Correct me if you remember a different one, but I think that shocked me the most, more even than the different POVs, which is funny because I write in first person present tense, and I was like, oh my God, is this how other people feel reading my books? But I think it's just surprised me because it's not as common in the romance genre, or at least not in the romances that I typically pick up. So I was curious, did it work for you? If not, what would you have preferred? Like if you were rewriting this book, how would you rewrite it in terms of the POVs or the tense or whatever?
It took a little bit getting used to. I think when there's a character, like when there's multiple character points of views, that's already a lot to juggle with. Usually in the romance books that we've read together, that I've read, it's just between the two. Not that hard to keep track of. But after a while, I felt like, well, I mean, I don't even know how else you would tell a story like this, you know? I really enjoyed it. It just took me a while to get into it. Um, if it were me, I would just stick to third person omniscient, like I want to know what everyone is thinking and feeling and all the sensations that are going through everyone's body all at the same time. I want to know everything, instant gratification. I don't want to wait for the next chapter. But that's just like how I would do it, and that's just my preference. But it did grow on me. I don't know. I feel like we've read another Cat Giraldo thing. I don't remember if it was that
In book
tense.
club?
We have. It was a short story in Best Women's Erotica. It was the statue story.
Okay. I think I was just thinking novels.
No. And I don't know if that was. I just don't know if this is like her style. I just haven't read enough of her stuff to to know if this is like her thing. But that being said, I stuck with it. You know what I mean? We were in it for the long haul, and we made it. So no real like critiques there. It was just different. You know what I mean? And sometimes things that are different, you just have to take your time getting used to them, and figuring out like your comfort level, your comfort zone within it. And once I got over the initial reaction of like, ew, I hate this, then I was like, oh, okay, well, actually, this is fine.
I think if I were gonna change anything, because I think the way that it was written, and I don't know if I'm misremembering, it was like you had one chapter and then you had all 3 perspectives in that chapter. And then I went to the next chapter and then you had all 3 perspectives in that chapter. I feel like that's how it was labeled. I might be wrong if I'm misremembering. But I think the hurdle that I had was not being in one perspective like long enough. So I almost would have just like reduced the amount of times you switch POVs. So like you would have just gone through one entire scene with one person and not then cut while sex is happening and then switch to sex from the point of view of like a different person, because then it's like, all right, I have to like reposition all my mental cameras to figure out like where people are. And I think one thing too, but this is definitely just a me thing, I've realized, unless it's a y'all thing too, but I don't think it is like when I read romance books that are from the point of view of a guy, there's like a greater emphasis in like checking people out. And the way that it's written sometimes, it's like that's not how I check people out. And so it throws me off because I was reading a different book. The Indiana Jones romance one, Journey of the Lost Heart or whatever. And that one switches point of view from the man and the woman too. And every time it went to the man's point of view, he was just like, it always started with him checking out her tits or checking out her ass and trying to like say that he had all these feelings for her as a person, but it always was like, I even read some of it out loud and was like, this is very like all of this keeps focusing on is her physical appearance. And it just like kind of put me off. So when that would happen in this story, I also had to kind of like every now and then I would just skim a little to get past the part where they're like checking people out. So that was just like one thing that I think I pick out of books that I don't love. Like I'm all for checking people out, but like at that point we know you're attracted to this person. Like I want to know what's going on with your relationship. I want to know like why this person's traumatized by the pool or like what it's like being in this co-ed baseball league or what it's like being this like woman in this physical therapy industry and like also what happened with the ex-best friend. Like there was a lot of stuff that I wish we had gone into, but a lot of the writing time was spent either switching points of view over the same scene or dedicating it to like checking each other out, which cool, like whatever floats your boat. That's probably stuff I would have like adjusted the reverb on. Just tweak the knobs a little bit just to balance it out a little bit.
Yeah, I think there was
Yeah.
an emphasis on like them finding each other attractive a lot. Like they were just like, wow, my partners are hot. They're hot. They're hot. And I see what you mean. I will say that because they got together so quickly, that maybe they were just like, stars in their eyes, like constantly,
Yeah,
wow, wow,
okay.
wow, wow, you're so fucking hot,
I will. Okay, I think that that's a good point because yeah, that too. Like they're friends, and then it crosses the line quick. And I remember starting the chapter where it becomes a sexual relationship and being like, nobody has talked about if this is something we're all into. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we've all been flirting, but
I have notes, but I don't like, let's see. I don't know. Maybe it'll come up. Drea, what do you?
Yeah, no, you know
there's
what?
something like that.
I'm gonna give you a choice, okay?
Okay.
Because I have a question. I want to talk about like the more like the relationships themselves and then also the spice. So do you want to start with the love or the sex? I'll let you all pick.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, I'll roll a dice.
Okay.
I have my handy dandy D20. I'm gonna roll it. And this is also from Cantrip Candles. It's like a metallic heavy die. If it's
We're not
odd,
sponsored, but
we're not
we
sponsored.
could be. Reach
could.
out to us.
We could be. So odds for relationship, evens for sexy times.
Yes.
14.
Sexy times. Let's talk about the spice, of which there was a lot. And the kink. I literally I wrote down at one point, this is like a Chris level pick. Well, so nobody knows about this, but the very first book that we all read together in book club, we read like 300 or 400 pages just to get to a kiss. I think it's just, like shout out to who we were, who we are now. Our books have changed, our tolerance levels have changed. So yeah, this book has a lot of spice, a lot of kink. Did the sex scenes work for you? And because there were so many of them, I'm just dying to know which sex scene was your favorite. If you have one, maybe you hated all of them, but if you have a favorite, please share it with us.
Okay, there were a lot. And to that note, I do want to say that wow, we have changed so much. Like I was trying to think of like how to commemorate this moment, and I went back and I watched our very first recording. It's just funny to hear all of us kind of like, I guess, begin our romance reading journey together, and like where we were then and where we are now, and how much has some certain people have changed. And
we have all changed.
we have all changed, but I want to say, I truly do want to say that, like, I think the sharpest arc is yours, Andre. And I think picking this book is like the culmination of 100 episodes of us working to get you there.
It's a climactic moment in your...
No, I really don't think I had ever picked up a romance book for fun until Chris had me join book club.
Yeah.
Other than like my teenage years, you know, stealing my mom's like Harlequin novels, but like once I was past that, so yeah. But anyway, so Chris, tell us what did you think about the spice in this book?
I really enjoyed it. I don't mind a lot of sexy scenes. I felt like, despite there being a lot of them, because there were, that spanned at least 2 chapters, you know, as we switched from one character point of view to the other, I still felt like, even though the plot wasn't like super strong, that there was a lot of story happening outside of the sexy times. And so I felt personally like there was like a really good balance. My favorite sex scene that I can recall of the numerous ones, I want to say it's the very first one. For various reasons, I want to say that it was kind of like their first time, you know, just discovering or acting upon the attraction that they felt for each other, and that uncertainty that they were feeling was really charming to me. I thought it was sweet. Obviously we've all been in the heads of all of the characters, so we all know that they want it. And I think that maybe the author does a good job of having Kid be like, are you good with this? Do you want to do this? Like, you know, in their own way. I don't feel like it crossed a line. I really felt like it was just kind of like they had a long day, they were tired, they'd been drinking, they were resting, they were napping, and then they had like a sexy moment. And I also like that it wasn't, I have nothing against it, but I like that it wasn't like a penetrative sex moment as well. And for them, it counted as sex. And I feel like a lot of people who aren't having like gay sex don't count that as sex. And I just thought it was really hot. Yeah, that's the one that it comes to my mind. They have like, you know, they have a ton of it afterwards, but I thought that one was the most like sexual and like romantic, you know, like they have their kinky moments and afterwards I'm like, whoa, I fucking love this person so much. But I think that's the first moment, and I want to say the only moment that stands out to me where there is sex and like a lot of emotion behind like what's going on.
I can't remember any of the sex scenes. There was so much that it just blurred into them having sex, and it was hard to follow because of switching the POVs. And so the details blurred along with, so the only one that I remember is the one that the first hookup that they had. And then I guess them kind of like getting frisky in the club. But even then it was like, I wanted to know what was going to happen. So I'm just like skimmed a bit at certain points because I'm like, okay, they're like still having sex. Okay, now it switched to the other person talking, like seeing them have sex. Okay, cool. When are they going to talk about their relationship? So while the sex scenes were entertaining and enjoyable, it was a little much for me just because it did make it a little hard for me to follow like what was going on. But I do think that that first time they hook up was important. I wish that there had been more like talking about things beforehand. Just because they kind of make Gideon out to be this like terribly shy person, and then they are put in the situation that like if I was a terribly shy person, I don't know how comfortable it would have been to be in that place. Especially because it made it seem like Gideon was not someone who speaks up for themselves a lot. So I don't know. It took me a second to read through, and once he was like verbally consenting and like expressing that he was into it, then I was like, okay, good. Like I'm glad there's actual like communication happening. Great, because I was worried that it wasn't gonna like go down like that.
Well, I was probably somewhere in between both of you. Like it definitely was too much sex for like what I personally enjoy in books. But I didn't skip over every single one like I might in other books. And I think it's because I was really fascinated by Kit and Jules' relationship. Like anytime, or I really was curious to see how the sexy times between them were developing. And so I think for me, my favorite sex scene was like, I think it was like the second one. Because I agree with you, Chris, that the first one was really cool because it was like the anticipation of like they weren't expecting to do this and like what is happening. But I think like once it happened, whenever the second or the third one was, or after like she and Kit like talked, you know, and he was like, no, I'm definitely like still only sexually attracted to men or whatever. I just really liked seeing how they found their flow in the sex scenes and were still able to like participate together. And so I think those are my favorite parts of the
I know
sex.
he's like there's like biromantic rep in this
Yeah.
one.
And which leads me into my relationship question. In general, I'm curious, first of all, as we always ask, like, did the relationship work for you? You know, were you shipping them as a triad? But also, like, I just want to know everybody's thoughts more on the relationships themselves, because I think that this book had such a cool mix, in my opinion, of like friendship and romantic attraction and sexual attraction and different power dynamics. And so I really, really enjoyed seeing all of that play out, like both within and outside of the sex scenes. So yeah, what did you all think about the romance and the relationship itself?
I really enjoyed their relationship slash friendship slash relationship. I thought that it was just really nice to see on the page. It's really and I like that it had its stops and its starts too. It's not like they just kind of they did get into it pretty quickly. They did jump into things fairly quickly, but my experience as a queer person is that sometimes those things are accelerated and you just kind of like you are on queer time. You're not on like regular people time. So like you when you know and you just kind of like jump in. That's not like for everybody, but it's just been like a feature in my romantic and in my friendship as well. Like we just and then we just go like we just need one moment, one yes, and then we're off to the races and we're like friends forever. I like that originally it was like, well, I don't know, like they didn't know where they like stood with each other. I like the conversation that Jules had with Kit about like, why are you making out with me and moaning into my mouth? I thought you liked men. Kit's like, yeah, I do. I like men, but I'm biromantic and I have feelings for you too. Like obviously I'm here with you. And I liked hearing that. I like seeing that. I low-key wish that there was more conversation between Kit and Gideon in the same way. I feel like we didn't get a lot of like relationship talk on the screen, like Tashai was talking about. We do get a lot of sex, and I feel like sex is like how they bond, especially because they are all Kingsters and they all like to play together. And sometimes I feel like in this book, it just kind of replaced that like relationship stuff that I'm like looking for. But I recognize that that could be the way that these characters kind of talked about their relationship, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how they strengthened their relationship instead of sitting down and like talking about things. They just kind of like did kinky stuff together and it fulfilled that emotional requirement. My only thing is that this kind of goes back to the sexy times talk where like I hate green as like your go word. I like hate that. I know it's like red light, green light or whatever, but I just if like you say a color to me, like I'm not thinking about anything but that color. And so it's just like I get why, safe words and like that good communication, especially during a scene, but I personally just like red and green and yellow and shit like that. I don't like those words, but that's
Would
just me.
you have preferred Kenepa?
Ugh, no, I hate canepas. I'm sorry, I hate canepas.
Oh, Flamboyant.
That's like I kept thinking of Tosh every time that Kit said pet. I was like, Tashai is counting.
I did too. And because I lent you my book, my Kindle account, I really enjoyed seeing your bookmarks, but I was like disappointed that you didn't leave me any notes, and I knew that.
Oh,
I wish that you had, because I was like, I bet Tashai will fucking hate this. I will say it wasn't.
If we do
Yeah.
this again, I'll leave notes. It didn't occur to me. I didn't want to like mess with the page stuff because I knew you had to read it after me.
No, it was
That's
good.
so funny.
But
I
I do feel like it wasn't annoying, but I felt like it happened often enough that you would have like raised your eyebrow at it.
It's just I have, my husband and I have nicknames for each other, but I'm not like saying it in front of other people if I can avoid it. Like to me, that's like a thing that people do in their relationship. So reading other people use it on other people just like throws me off when when it's used a lot. I'm just like having it be pet and having it be sir. I'm like, I'm not in I'm not in this. I'm not in this. I'm not in this scene. Oh God, like it's so awkward. Okay, relationship wise though, I like really appreciated that they represented different relationship dynamics among the three of them because I don't know why it never occurred to me IRL. Obviously it's true, and then seeing it in the book I'm like, oh yeah, it's almost like a thing that I had thought about but it had never like cemented itself, that just because you're in a poly relationship doesn't mean that everybody has the same relationship with each other, and that you can be with someone where there's like, oh, this is like a romantic relationship but this is like a physical relationship, and then this is a physical relationship but then this is like the variety of dynamics within the three of them I appreciated seeing on the page, because I don't think that that's something that I've necessarily read while having the characters be sexually active like in this group dynamic. Because I think, like you've mentioned, the prior books that we've read, it was like this one person is having sex with like these two people individually, but they are not like necessarily participating in things together. Whereas here they were, they had like sexual encounters where everybody kind of had a part to play, and they were actively involved with each other and like happy about it, and they had relationships that were independent of the trio but like still strong and like nice relationships. And so I think that was the part that I actually appreciated the most out of the book, even more so than any of the fun sex scenes. Was like, oh, that's interesting, because I've been of the point of view of like, I have my romantic relationship with my, partner hubs, and like this is that dynamic. Like I'm not going to have this relationship with anybody else, but I'm attracted to other people, and like he's attracted to other people, and we've talked about like, well, in our relationship the way that we are, we're each other's like person. Like I'm going to be married to this person, this is like who I'm building this specific part of my life with. But there does exist the fact that like there are other people, and other people fulfill different things in your lives, and like different friendships and people who you just think are like really good looking and you have fun with. So it was fun to see it in a story written the way that it did, where it like respected everyone's boundaries, which I thought was really cool too. Like once they were talking, then it's like, okay, this is the understanding of what the relationship is. You had to get there first. Like they dicks out before talking about the dicks being out, but once the dicks were out and once they got going, then it was nice to have moments where the conversations were happening. Even though, like Chris said, I wish there had been more of that, because that I was like, ooh, like tell me more. I want to know about how this like works. Like what this is fascinating to me.
Yeah, especially because it wasn't a novella. So I feel like there was definitely space for that in the within the pages, but
Yeah.
there is a book that I heard about on a podcast recently. It talks about, how folks consider, like, mostly folks who are like in monogamous relationships, they're married to their partner and they're like, that's my best friend. They're my partner, my best friend, they're my everything, they're my world, they're my everything, whatever. And for some people, that's just not the case. Like they are like in love with their partner and they are, committed to them, but that person isn't everything to that person. Like they have like a really strong relationship with somebody else that doesn't just fit like, oh, we're best friends. Like that is another relationship. And I thought that was so interesting. I picked up the book and I've yet to read it, but I think that it is totally possible. And I wish that like it's not that I wish that more people were poly, but I wish that more people were kind of like open to just the idea that relationships don't always have to look how you think they look like. And just because you are like with more than one person doesn't mean that you are like neglecting one part or the other. Like it can be like extremely fulfilling, whether you are having sex with all of your partners or whether you're just kind of like having sex with one and then just being friends with the other. I I want this version. Everyone was super cool with it too. Like in the book, everyone was so like chill. They, there wasn't like a big coming out or anything like that. Um, Everyone just kind of took the news that they were together in stride, and I felt like that didn't bring up any stress in their relationship and didn't seem like unrealistic. It seemed idyllic, to be honest, but it didn't put me off. I was like, yes, this is what I want to see. Like this is the fantasy that I want to live in. I don't know if we're at co-ed Major League Baseball just yet, but like sure, everyone being cool with you being in a poly relationship. I can get on board with that.
Well, and speaking of kind of the idyllic relationship, one of my questions, because I know we've discussed it in a lot of books, I know we all have different opinions about the third act breakup and that kind of stuff in romance novels. And so how did you feel about their not just not being a third act breakup, but really not being like a lot of conflict between them as partners? At no point is someone like, this is over, or like, you betrayed me, or like nothing like that happens, right? And so I was curious if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you wanted more drama, like were you less invested because there weren't obstacles to overcome? Like how did you feel about the idyllic nature and like how kind of easygoing everything was?
I think that the book lends itself to being idyllic, obviously with the whole co-ed baseball thing. Again, it's not that I don't care about sports, but I was like, what? So I need to like go back and read the first book. I know it's a standalone, but I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean she's on the team? I was so confused. Anyway,
That's the first book. It was about her.
Yes, Sierra and Mateo.
Yeah.
And they're all like, I like how all the players are like going through it, like, oh no, this is my last major league. It's like, yeah, that's right. Professional sports are hard on the body. I like that there wasn't a third act breakup. I think it's like to the strength of the book too. If there had been a third act breakup, I would have been like, are you kidding me? After all of this, like we're gonna just let one thing. I do appreciate the scene where Jules is contemplating it. Where Jules is like, I'm gonna cut and run because I don't want to hurt my partners. And I thought that okay, here's where this is gonna happen. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna be here. And I like how her friend is like, I know that you're feeling a type of way, and I know that you think that leaving is the answer, but it's not, and you're gonna be miserable if you do that. And I was like, I was just like, it was just a quick, like my heart went like, no. And then it kind of like turned it around. I feel like I identify a lot with that feeling of shit is bad and I want to cut and run, you know what I mean? And even if for the better, for the worse, like I think it's better if I take myself out of the situation, things aren't working how I thought it was gonna work, and I'm ready to leave, and I think everyone will be better if I do. And I appreciated seeing that because that is a thing that I have experienced. And I like that she had a friend there to talk her down, and the rest of the story could continue with them all together. So it was nice that she had that support. And I like that it wasn't like, yeah, we're gonna get through this together. Like there was a moment of doubt where I'm like, oh no.
Based on the book being what it is, I didn't think there was going to be any sort of big fallout, especially because I think if there had been something, it probably would have come up much sooner. I know that the part of I think Gideon being jelly about Jules moving in, like that whole thing, like I thought that it was appropriate to have there be feelings of jealousy because of the fact that this is like a new relationship that they were trying to figure out among themselves and like individually too, like what is the role that I play in this? Like, do I feel like there's balance in this relationship? What does balance look like between the three of us? Because we do have like nuances in the relationship. So I don't think I anticipated there was going to be anything necessarily dramatic happening near the end. So I'm happy that they all just seemed to like talk and it went well for them, just because it's nice to see this kind of a relationship that you don't see often just working out well among adults who have formed a community for themselves with their loved ones and their friends. What I wanted in the third act was for that one guy who was just like the big bad and just like kept somehow like, you know, when someone's the bad guy, but then they like make him almost cartoonishly evil, like you Jezebel whore with your kinkery and fucking all the dicks and fuck you, but I'm gonna fuck you. Like, I assumed and hoped that there would be some sort of just like beatdown of this character because of the way that they kept escalating his amount of just like disgusting behavior. So it's like, okay, is there gonna be a fight? Like, is he gonna get hit by a car? What's gonna go on here? Because at this point, he's like cartoonishly evil. And then that didn't happen. And they're like, oh yeah, the lawyers are gonna talk to him. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? There's a baseball team.
They have access to baseball bats, and nobody used it to break this motherfucker's knees.
Bats and lawyers. I'm like, really? And after all that, the like ex-roommate was like still being a bitch about shit for the longest time. So I'm just like, that's what I wish my third act had been, is them being like, oh, he got jumped, but no one saw anything. There were no video cameras. So crazy. We were with each other the whole time. Thing where Jules lifts her leg and just that's what I wanted to see. That's my
fucking death proof and just like right on his fucking face. Yes.
exact reference. Perfect.
We
reference.
saw that movie together. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That is exactly what I mean.
Yeah, no, I was happy too. I hate third act breakups. Especially because I feel like they're often communication or lack of communication based, and I hate that. I thought they did a pretty good job in this book of communicating all the way through. Like, yeah, like you mentioned, Tashai and Chris, like every character had moments of like being scared about something and not communicating it to their partners right away, but like eventually they did. Like everyone eventually always talked, which was very refreshing. Also, we didn't mention this, but something I also really loved about the ending was that ridiculous baseball calendar they all made. I thought that was
you've jogged my memory. This week has been so nuts. I was like, how did this book even end?
They were like, oh well, if people are gonna out our poly relationship, then we're gonna out it ourselves. And then somehow that turned into let's all make a nude kinky calendar together. And then
amazing. I thought that was so fucking fun. I thought that was
and then like the dad
idea.
joins in at the end with his little underwear still on because it's like, you know, he's not gonna be naked in front of everybody, but he was just back. So anyway, I thought that was
money than a lemonade stand, I'll tell you that much.
I thought it was really cute. But okay, I only have one more question to go. So last one. Fuck, marry, friend zone. Who are you picking for each one? And no, you can't pick them all because we're not living in the world of this book. So you do need to assign each person a category.
Wait, hang on. What is it? Is it fuck, marry, and friend zone?
I am. I got my answers. I am.
Okay.
Marrying Kit because he's loaded. And just apparently is like the hottest out of all of them. I am banging Jules. She sounds really hot. And I'm friend zoning Gideon because he's a little too like quiet and serious for me. I don't think we would have a lot in common to have like a good time. And he seems like a little sweetheart. Like I wanna like take care of him, but I don't think that he'd be into me. And I feel like that'd be okay. I'd be okay with that.
So you'll be surprised to know that we have the same results, but for different reasons.
Okay, wait, but me too.
Yes. Okay, here's mine. I would fuck Jules. Well, I wouldn't like fuck Jules. I would bottom for Jules. You know what I mean? Like I would do a scene with her, and yeah, I think she would show me a good time. We would have a good time. I would marry Kit because Kit can cook, and everything that he cooked sounded so damn good. And I also Kit brought a lot of the energy that I feel like I bring to relationships where I'm like, oh, I want to take care of you. I want to do this for you. I want to cook for you. I want to make sure you're okay. And I was just like, oh, it would be nice to be on the receiving end of that, and just kind of like match each other in that way. They did all balance each other out really well. Like Jules is like, I don't cook. But I think it would be really fun to be like partners with Kit and cook and take care of each other, just make sure that each other are okay. And Gideon would just be like a little too much work for me. Like I don't want to chase people around. I don't want to bring people out of their shell. I want to meet you where you are, and hopefully you're ready for me. If not, then we'll just be friends. And so that's my fuck, marry, friend zone.
It was also hard to get. They're like trying to have a good time and be friends and like whatever. And he's like, okay, pues vete. Vete.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, bye.
Vete.
And I mean, obviously I understand what he's going through because I can read it, but had this been a person in my life, I would have been like, okay. Whatever. Are you invited? You invited that guy? Why? Why'd you do that? Okay, Drea, what are your reasons? Do they match up with ours?
Okay. I mean, I agree with everything you all have said. I do think that a pro in marrying Kit is that he's rich and also that he can cook and take care of me. I think another reason is all three of these people have way too much sex. And so by marrying Kit, who would not be sexually attracted to me, we could just have like the nice romantic relationship without all of those like insanely copious amounts of sex. I would fuck Jules because I feel like we could find like some sort of kinky scene that would really work for both of us. Like I just feel like she'd be really open to a lot of things, and and it would be fun, and it would be like a one-time thing, because if I was in a relationship with Jules, again, it would be way too much sex. And then friend zone Gideon, because I was just not attracted to him at all. No, you know what? I think it's just I think it's because if we're gonna go by like super loose, like dom and sub kind of terms, like I just can't be with someone who's submissive. And he truly was like the embodiment of that word. And so it was just not do it for me. But I'd love to be his friend and like have some training sessions in the pool, and he's welcome to fuck Kit all he wants while Kit is married to me. Like, it's all good.
Right. Can you imagine? Can you please pick a fucking restaurant? Pick a restaurant. I want to get dinner. I don't care. No, just whatever anyone wants. Like, are you fucking kidding me? No puedo. Vete pa'l carajo.
I think it's funny. I think pick the same ones. I feel like that never happens.
That never happens.
It's like the magic of the 100th episode.
It really was magic.
Magic.
Yeah. 100, baby. Brought us together. 100. Hey, that's 3 numbers. Just saying. There's 3 of us. There's 3 of them.
Like that's it. Those are all my questions. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you really wanted to bring up before we move on?
Okay, I wanted to know how you felt about, obviously there's like too much sex in this for y'all. And we sometimes have like this thing where like, there's like they ate a whole fucking meal before they had sex. That's so weird. I want to know how you felt about them fucking after a fucking hard ass workout.
Not at all.
Oh yeah, no.
That's how you get a UTI.
It wasn't even after the workout. It was like while they were working out, they were teasing each other, and it's like, no, I don't want to be holding like a 50-pound barbell while you're like teasing me. Like that sounds, in the real world, someone would have had some big ass weights fall on their crotch and they would have had to go to the hospital.
She would have gotten a UTI. She would have gotten a UTI. Would have gotten some sort of like.
She was always so wet and it was like sweaty and wet.
I bought into it only because the 3 of them were jocks, and I'm like, if anyone's gonna be into this,
I believe
it's gonna be them.
They wanted it, but
I hope she has her cranberry pills though.
Girl needs to be snorting cranberry powder and like make sure that she is frequently urinating to make sure that stuff is clean down there. Because like obviously we are all sweaty. After a really intense workout, the amount of ass crack sweat, like no me toque. I can't even put my clothes in the hamper. I have to put it on the floor somewhere to let it air out. to then wash it.
Yeah, because then it'll bomb out your whole like hamper. Yeah, I've been there. I'm a sweaty girl, and I feel the same way. But I also, again, I just went with it because I'm like, if anyone's gonna be into sweaty ass crack sex, it's gonna be these people.
Yeah, and there's some people who are like really into it. Like
they had so much sex during their training that I was like, is Kit's knee okay? Like, did they did they actually train?
No, his career's actually over. You're gonna read the third book, and he had to retire early because he massively fucked up his knee.
I know he ended up like his knee was fine, but then like during their kinky gym sex, like they dropped a barbell on his knee and then fucked it up. It's just never the same.
Shattered it like a Ritz cracker. Now he's just. That's his new nickname is Ritz.
Ritz cracker. Okay, that's all I wanted to add to the conversation. Sweaty ass crack sex or full of mofongo sex. Like, pick your poison, you know?
Oh my God. In either scenario, can I just give you a hand job?
Okay, I would go with the gym only because yeah, it's like a gross situation, but I feel like I'm more likely to puke in the mofongo situation. And nothing would be as bad as like being naked with my own puke on me. Like that sounds terrible. So I would never pick the mofongo situation ever.
If I didn't finish the mofongo, if I knew there was gonna be sex after the mofongo, then
just have half the mofongo before the sex and then like finish the mofongo after.
Exactly. I can do that just because with the gym, not only am I disgusting, but I'm also exhausted. I'm not a jock. I can't do the gym and then also have sex. It's just not physically possible for me. I can barely make it up the stairs. It will sueño. In a world where I'm an athlete, maybe it's a different story.
Well, thank you so much for answering all of my questions. That's all I had for today's episode. But before we go, I'm curious, what else is everybody reading?
I am currently making my way through. Oh, you can't really see it. Okay. It's They Ain't Proper by M.B. Ghoul. This is a book that I'm reading for the Trans Rights Readathon, which ends tomorrow. So by the time this goes up, it will be over. And it's just a very queer, very hot romance, Western romance that I almost picked as a pick for this year. But I decided to, read it on my own time, and I'll let you know about it on the internet, on Instagram, if I get around to posting about it. But yeah, Trans Rights Readathon, it'll be over by the time I publish this episode, but support trans books all year, support trans folks all year. I invite you to either donate to trans, non-binary, two-spirit, LGBTQIA plus charity to ensure that the world is safe for all queer folks.
Well, I am reading Into the Riverlands. If you watch all of our episodes, then you might remember that we read, of course, now I'm blanking on the title, but the Tiger Lady book.
When the Tiger Comes Down the Mountain.
When the Tiger Comes Down the Mountain, which is book 2 in the series, right? I really, really love that book, part of the Singing Hills Cycle series. And so then when I moved from Virginia to New Orleans, I listened to the first book on audio, so I went backwards, and I really liked it. So I had been meaning to continue. I know the 4th novella came out kind of recently, and so I'd been meaning to continue. So onward to the 3rd book, and then hopefully at some point this year, onward to the 4th book.
Mammoth at the Gates. It's so good. I really like this one. This one's got a lot of martial arts in it. I know you've never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but like you should, because it's good. It's got those vibes where it's like there's martial arts and there's a romance. Beautiful. But yeah, it's like people running across treetops. You know what I mean? It's very good.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I highly recommend the whole series. You don't have to. They can all be read as standalones, right? We certainly read the second one as a standalone, and it was really good. So yeah, going back into the series, reading book 3.
I bought another one of those book boxes where the story takes place in Puerto Rico. Ooh. And it's a really, really pretty book. I forget what it's called though. I bought it for the presents. The first little gift that I opened is like this really cute corduroy bag that had a spool of yarn and little knitting needles in it. So I was like, here's my hobby. Yay.
Well, next month we are reading Chris's pick. Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Yes, it is Stars in Your Eyes by Kaysen Calendar. I got this book as an ALC from Libro FM a while ago, but I saved it because I'd wanted to read a romance by Kaysen Calendar. And so I figured, let's go. And it's about two actors, and it is it also has interesting reviews. I recently watched a hangout by Jess on YouTube. It's a booktuber. And they run the NB Book Club, and they really enjoy. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just kind of watched like the first part because I didn't want a lot of spoilers. They seem to like it a lot, so I felt really heartened in my choice. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be reading for April, which means that this is the Outfield. This is the close of Q1 on the Only Lovers of Agenda.
It is the close. And I'm really excited for Stars in Your Eyes. I think me personally, I'm always fascinated by authors who can write across not just multiple genres, but age categories. So in case someone is not familiar, like Kaysen Calendar writes middle grade and YA and adult in various genres, ranging from like historical to contemporary to like thrillers. And so, yeah, it's also, they like quit the internet. And I find that so brave. Like,
Yeah,
I wish
I love that for them.
yeah, just didn't have to have a presence anywhere. So I'm very excited to read this book, Chris. And yeah, I have seen the mixed reviews too, but I think
it's been mixed. People have not some people, you either like it or you don't like it. And I think it's gonna make for an interesting conversation. And I really like Kaysen Calendar. So
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's like I've read multiple books by them that I really liked. So but I've never read an adult book. I've only read their middle grade and their YA. So I'm very excited to. And so very last thing before you all go, I don't know who has been keeping up with our Only Lovers reading challenge on Storygraph, and you can also find it on our Instagram. There's like templates for it. But if you are trying to complete our challenge, we do have one category for a Latinx sports book, which this fits into. So make sure you check that if you've read this book or if you've read any other Latinx sporty romances. If there's any that we should check out, leave them down in the comments. I don't think as a book club we have read a lot of sporty romance. I think none of us are like hardcore athletes, but maybe we should read more about hardcore athletes. So rec some books down below if you think there are others that fit the prompt. Until then, have a great night. Thank you for joining us on our 100th episode, and may there be 100 more.
May there be 100 more. Love you guys. Thank you for making it to the end of our 100th episode, our motherfucking 100th episode. Hello? If you've been here from the beginning, thank you so much. And if not, welcome. Like Andrea said, here's to 100 more. Thank you for spending all of that time with us, and thank you for spending your future time with us as well. You can support Only Lovers Book Club for free by subscribing to our shows and sharing our episodes. The more you share, the more eyes on us, and the more we can grow. Make sure to like the video or leave us a comment. If you're listening, don't forget to leave us a review. 5 stars on Spotify or on, what's the other one? Oh yeah, Apple Podcast. You can become a supporter on Ko-fi or buy some books from our bookshop. All of those links are in the description box. You can follow us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club.